Young and Dyslexic, Edexcel IGCSE English Language. Let's have a look at a question for outstanding response. I want to get you 12 out of 12. Stay tuned. Schofield on Shakespeare.
Abbiamo il cuore a strisce, portaci dove vuoi.
So this question is out of 12. You need to show a perceptive understanding of the effects of language and structure and be reasonably technical in your analysis. Try to use some subject terminology for every quotation that you explore. There are 12 marks for this question, so try to analyse 12 quotations split into 4 different paragraphs. However, make sure that you're sharply focused on the question and don't just regurgitate generic analysis from your own annotations. Subject terminology is very important with this exam board. Make sure that your analysis is as technical as possible. This video is going to explore this question. How does the writer use language and structure to interest and engage the reader? Jot this down. And now consider your text again in the light of this question. It's about to appear on screen at 5-second intervals. You may like to add additional annotations to your own copy of the text, choosing quotations particularly pertinent to this question. Press pause now. Here now are my annotations on the text relating to this particular question. I'd recommend reading these through carefully and adding to your own annotations within your copies of the text. Press pause now. Here's the most important bit now. Time for you to write your own full essay, which you'll be able to compare with mine. Remember, watching YouTube videos without actually doing anything is going to be much less helpful than being active and practicing. So the question, of course, how does the writer use language and structure to interest and engage the reader? 4 chunky paragraphs. You're exploring 3 quotations in each using subject terminology consistently. You don't need an intro or a conclusion. Come on, get cracking. Press pause now.
How did you get on? Produce a delicious 12 out of 12 cracker. Time to compare your response with mine.
The opening to the article engages the reader with his positive proclamations about the advantages of being dyslexic. Zephaniah states, "We are the architects, we are the designers." These consecutive references to valued work positions within main clauses can be interpreted literally but also metaphorically. Either way, the effect is to give a fresh, unusual perspective on dyslexic individuals. Rather than stressing, for instance, chronic difficulties with spelling, this imagery suggests that those with dyslexia have the imaginative mindset needed to create exciting new visions and landscapes. However, Zephaniah points out that historically such creativity and difficulties with literacy hasn't been appreciated. In the past, there was no compassion, no understanding, and no humanity. This tricolon of abstract nouns suggests that teachers failed to listen, empathise, or even interest themselves in the difficulties faced by dyslexics. Indeed, the noun humanity suggests that the teachers failed to demonstrate even basic civility and kindness in their dealings with these pupils. This is confirmed by a subsequent sentence in which Zephaniah points out that being kind and thoughtful and listening just wasn't done. The use of polysyndeton shows the extent to which dyslexic pupils' difficulties were ignored and dismissed. The teachers didn't want to engage on any level with these pupils' issues. The reader is also likely to be interested by Zephaniah's descriptions of his volatile exchanges with his teachers. It is notable that his ideas always contradicted the teachers'. The adverb always confirms the persistent regularity with which the writer thought or felt differently to the teacher, and behaved in a way unfairly deemed unsettling and provocative. Zephaniah's use of logical argument is also interesting when he suggests that God may have erred in his design of human beings. If there's a God, if you built something, if I was God. The anaphoric repetition of if confirms both Zephaniah's logical curiosity and his interest in exploring rational consequences and questioning established norms. The reader is likely to feel that many teachers would have struggled to deal with such persistent argument, and this is confirmed when Zephaniah references the teacher's response, "Shut up, stupid boy." The brutal imperative and the use of the adjective stupid suggest the complete absence of tact or kindness from the teacher, and a disturbing willingness to belittle and demean. It is interesting to hear Zephaniah's broad and mature reflections on his own education and the education system as a whole. He knows that he was expelled partly because of arguing on an intellectual level and partly for being a rude boy and fighting. The parallelism shows that the narrator takes a degree of responsibility for his expulsions. These are not just related to his sense that his perspective and ideas were being shut down, but also for poor behaviour. However, he clearly feels that teachers had too much supremacy within their own classrooms. Referencing a teacher who suggested that the Nazis weren't that bad, he writes, "He could say that in the classroom." This simple sentence highlights the power and freedom teachers had during that period in their classrooms, which may not necessarily have contributed to the well-being and enlightenment of their pupils. Zephaniah's links between dyslexia and the prison population are also interesting. However, as is typical throughout this piece, he encourages a positive mindset. But staying out of prison is about conquering your fears and finding your path. The initial coordinating conjunction shifts the focus away from dwelling on barriers and difficulties to developing a determined, forward-facing mentality. Zephaniah clearly feels that dyslexics, or more broadly those from a poor background, should be positive rather than wallow in self-pity. In the final stages of the article, Zephaniah's advice to dyslexics, but also more broadly those facing discrimination, is engaging. He states, "But don't be heavy on yourself." This kind imperative within a short, simple sentence appeals directly to those struggling to remain positive. Additionally, the dialectal use of the adjective heavy creates a more informal, engaging, relaxed feel in which those with literacy difficulties are implored to be kind to themselves. Zephaniah is always keen to stress the advantages of having dyslexia in this article, and he does this again when he talks about difficulties forming sentences. Your creativity muscle gets bigger when you have to wrestle with language. Muscles are typically used more literally in reference to body parts, which have the potential, with training and hard work, to grow and become more powerful and attractive. Zephaniah is thus suggesting that the need to think differently due to literacy difficulties can evolve over time to become similarly powerful and appealing. Finally, the end to the article engages the audience due to its comic shift of perspective and use of an expletive. Zephaniah reveals that he tells children, bloody non-dyslexics, who do they think they are? Traditionally and unhelpfully, it might be dyslexic pupils being challenged for their difficulties and errors when reading and writing. However, this switch changes the focus and instead humorously positions dyslexics as the dominant group in society, who have the potential to achieve so much if only they adapt the right, ambitious mindset. Some ruminations on this essay. Why does it achieve 12 marks? Well, of course, it follows the basic structure of including a topic sentence at the beginning of each paragraph which answers the question, before analysing 3 quotations in each paragraph in concise detail using subject terminology. Sometimes, however, it can be helpful expanding upon the definition of a key word or exemplifying in order to help your analysis be even more insightful. This is something I do when pointing out that having dyslexia can be associated with having chronic spelling difficulties. But according to Zephaniah, these should not restrict you. I do know it isn't easy to analyse 12 quotations when under such time pressure in an exam, particularly given that question 5 is worth so many more marks. So sometimes you need to move quickly. Sometimes one single focused sentence of analysis can be enough before moving on. But remember the subject terminology seen here in adverb, anaphoric repetition, imperative and adjective. Keep coming back to the question. Don't just regurgitate your annotations. Remember, the question here is, how does the writer use language and structure to interest and engage the reader? Hence, it is interesting to hear, and Zephaniah's links between dyslexia and the prison population are also interesting. In this section, once again, I define one of the key images, in this case muscles, in order to give more insight into what Zephaniah is seeking to achieve with his use of the phrase creativity muscle. It's also good to give an air of finality to your essay by writing prior to your final quotation, finally, comma. The end to the article engages. Remember the importance of covering the text as a whole.
This has been a Schofield on Shakespeare production, helping you with Zephaniah's Young and Dyslexic for IGCSE Edexcel English Language. Let's get you full marks for question 4. Keep thinking and keep watching Schofield on Shakespeare.